Close your eyes and imagine the silence of deep space. A silence so vast, so endless, that even the faint hum of a spacecraft would be swallowed whole by the dark. Now, imagine something breaking that silence, something not from our solar system. In 2017, humanity caught its first fleeting glimpse of such a visitor, Oumuamua. It came from beyond the stars, and it left us with more questions than answers. Then, in 2019, another object arrived, 3IATLAS, a second messenger, two interstellar travelers, appearing within only a few years of each other. And yet, according to the vastness of space, the odds of this happening should have been almost impossible. So what are we witnessing? A coincidence or a cosmic message? The official voices at NASA have spoken carefully, cautiously, some might say, too cautiously. For every answer they give, 10 new questions are left unspoken, and it's in those silences, those gaps, where mystery lives. Throughout human history, the night sky has been our greatest mystery. We once thought the stars were gods. We thought comets were omens. We thought planets were perfect, eternal lights. But time and science revealed them to be worlds, rocks, and fireballs. Natural, yet still extraordinary. Yet every so often, something arrives that reminds us the universe is not finished surprising us. Oumuamua and 3I Atlas, two strange objects that entered our solar system from the cold abyss of interstellar space. Their paths were not like those of comets we've seen before. Their behavior was not quite what physics predicted, and their timing suspiciously close together. When the first interstellar object was discovered, many astronomers said it would be centuries before another came along. But only 2 years later, one did. Why? Why now? Let us step back, for a moment, into the mindset of early humanity. Imagine standing on a shoreline, thousands of years ago, watching a strange ship appear on the horizon. It looks different from any boat your people have ever built. It sails straight toward you. It comes from far beyond the waters you've known. Do you feel curiosity or fear? That is where we now stand, on the cosmic shoreline, watching interstellar ships drift by. Oumuamua was the first. It was unlike anything we'd ever seen. Not a comet, not an asteroid, something other. And then 3I Atlas followed, different in appearance, but equally mysterious. And the questions began to multiply. What are they? Why are they here? And what is NASA not telling us? Astronomers can measure speed, trajectory, brightness. They can compare shapes, estimate sizes, and track orbits. But when the data does not fit the models, something unsettling happens. Scientists retreat into silence. They offer careful statements, and sometimes they say nothing at all. It is in those silences that imagination begins to whisper. What if these objects were not random debris? What if they were probes, scouts, or messengers? What if we are not alone? Of course, the official explanations lean toward natural origins, but even those explanations feel strained, as if something is missing. And so, tonight, we begin a journey, a calm, patient exploration of these mysteries. We will drift through the stars together, uncovering the secrets of Oumuamua, examining the enigma of 3IATLAS, and comparing their strange similarities. We will listen for the silences of NASA and ask, what are they not saying? What signals, what anomalies, lie hidden in the shadows of official reports? We will dare to wonder if these objects are natural wanderers or crafted messengers, and we will allow ourselves to imagine, in the quiet of the night, what if these are not visitors, but warnings? The mystery of interstellar visitors is not just about astronomy, it is about our place in the universe. It is about the possibility that we are being watched, or perhaps tested. We do not yet know the answers, but by the end of this story, you will see why these objects, tiny specks drifting across the vast ocean of space, may hold the most profound implications for the future of humanity. So settle in, slow your breathing, let the quiet of the cosmos wash over you, because tonight, we uncover a cosmic secret. In the autumn of 2017, astronomers at the Haleoclub Observatory in Hawaii noticed something unusual gliding across the night sky. At first, it seemed like another asteroid, one of countless rocky fragments that circle our sun. But within days, the data revealed something that shook the scientific community. This was not a normal asteroid. This was not even a normal comet. It was something far more mysterious. The object was small, perhaps only a few hundred meters long, but it was moving with a velocity that defied expectations. Instead of looping around the sun in a familiar elliptical orbit like nearly every other rock in our cosmic neighborhood, this object was flying on a hyperbolic trajectory, a path that came from the stars cut sharply through the solar system and would never return. It was the first confirmed interstellar visitor ever detected. Humanity had, for the first time, laid eyes on something that originated beyond our sun. They named it Oumuamua, a Hawaiian word chosen to honor the place of its discovery. It means a scout or messenger, as if sent from a distant past, carrying secrets from another star system. The name carried a quiet reverence and a sense of awe, because this object was unlike anything we had ever encountered. When astronomers tried to picture Oumuamua, the details only deepened the mystery. Observations hinted that it might be elongated, shaped not like a sphere or potato-shaped rock, but like a stretched-out cigar, perhaps 10 times longer than it was wide. Some argued it could even be a thin, flat shard, tumbling through space end over end. Yet, because it was so small and so far away, no telescope could capture a clear image. Instead, astronomers had to reconstruct its appearance from the way its brightness flickered as it spun. That flickering suggested dramatic changes in shape, as if the object was long, thin, and irregular, unlike anything found in our solar system. But its appearance wasn't the strangest part. The true puzzle lay in its motion. As Oumuamua zipped past the sun and slingshotted away, its trajectory shifted ever so slightly, as if something invisible was nudging it forward. Normally, comets display such behavior because sunlight heats their icy cores, causing gas and dust to burst out in jets, gently propelling them. But Oumuamua had no such tail, no glow, no halo of dust. It was eerily silent, dark, and barren, yet it was accelerating, just enough to raise eyebrows across the world of astronomy. Scientists raced to propose explanations. Some suggested that perhaps Oumuamua was made of exotic ices, ones that evaporated without producing visible gas, maybe carbon monoxide or hydrogen, substances so faint that our telescopes simply couldn't detect them. Others thought it could be a fragment, a shard broken off from a shattered planet in some other star system, cast into interstellar space and drifting for eons before passing near us. And then there was the theory that captured the public imagination. Dr. Avi Loeb, a prominent Harvard astronomer, put forth a radical idea. Perhaps Oumuamua wasn't a natural object at all. Perhaps it was artificial, a relic of alien engineering. Loeb suggested it could be a light sail, a wafer-thin structure designed to ride on starlight, much like a ship's sail catches the wind. In this scenario, the mysterious acceleration wasn't due to evaporating ice, but the push of sunlight itself, nudging along an artifact built by another civilization. The idea was provocative, and not all scientists welcomed it. Many argued that jumping to alien technology was unnecessary when natural explanations might suffice. Still, the debate refused to fade. The more scientists studied Oumuamua, the more it seemed to defy categorization. Every model had flaws, every explanation left questions unanswered. What made the mystery even more frustrating was the fleeting nature of the encounter. Oumuamua came and went in a matter of weeks. By the time astronomers realized its significance, it was already racing away, to faint for detailed study. There would be no spacecraft sent to intercept it, no close-up photographs, no second chances. Humanity's first known visitor from another star had already slipped back into the darkness, leaving us with nothing but traces of its passage and an unsettling list of unanswered questions. NASA, for its part, issued careful, measured statements. They acknowledged the object's uniqueness, but resisted speculation. There were no dramatic press conferences, no bold theories, just quiet, cautious science. To some, that restraint looked like professionalism. To others, it seemed evasive, as if the space agency knew more than it was letting on. Was NASA simply cautious, or was there something about Oumuamua that they preferred not to discuss openly? Whatever the truth, the mystery of Oumuamua lingers. Was it a shard of frozen hydrogen, slowly evaporating invisibly? Was it a splinter of rock from a distant world, flung out into the void billions of years ago? Or was it something more extraordinary, a messenger, not of nature, but of intelligence? Oumuamua left us with no clear answers, only questions, and perhaps that is what makes it so haunting. In the quiet vastness of space, an object from another star brushed past our world, silent, swift, and strange. We caught only the faintest glimpse before it vanished forever, reminding us how small, and how unprepared we truly are when the universe decides to send us a visitor. As the stars wheeled overhead in that autumn sky, humanity realized something profound. We are not isolated. We are part of a wider galaxy filled with wonders, some familiar, and others utterly alien. Oumuamua was our first known interstellar visitor, but surely it will not be the last. And so, the mystery remains, carried away by the scout, the messenger from afar, leaving us to wonder what story it came to tell, and why it chose to remain silent. Not long after the mystery of Oumuamua began to fade into the archives of astronomy, a new chapter quietly opened. Another interstellar visitor, one that deepened the questions and challenged our understanding of the cosmos. It was the year 2024 when the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, better known as the Atlas Telescope Survey, detected a faint, wandering object moving against the backdrop of stars. Atlas was designed to scan the skies for potential hazards, small asteroids that might collide with Earth. But what it found, this time, was not a danger, at least not directly. Instead, it was something almost unheard of, an object not bound to our sun at all. Astronomers quickly realized they were looking at only the third confirmed interstellar object ever detected. Officially, it was catalogued as 3I ATLAS, the 3I, marking its place as the third known interstellar visitor after Oumuamua and Comet 2I, Borisov. For the scientific community, it was like spotting a ghost, an event so rare that just one discovery should have been a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence. And yet, here it was, again. But 3I, Atlas, was not a mere repeat of the story. Unlike Oumuamua, which had slipped past us silently, enigmatic and featureless, 3I ATLA has revealed itself with a strange and unsettling behavior. Its light flickered and wavered. Its brightness shifted in ways that suggested not a single solid body, but something more chaotic. It appeared torn, fragmented, as if it were a cosmic survivor holding itself together despite deep fractures. From the very first weeks of observation, scientists noted that its trajectory told a remarkable story. The object wasn't born in our solar system. Its orbit was hyperbolic, cutting across the plane of planets at an angle that made no sense for anything native to this region of space. The numbers suggested that it had been wandering the galaxy for millions, perhaps billions, of years. It might have been cast out of a star system long ago, hurled into interstellar space by a violent collision, or the gravitational tug of giant planets flinging it outward until it escaped completely. And yet, of all the possible paths across the Milky Way, across the endless ocean of stars, it had arrived here, in our skies, at this particular time. That coincidence struck many as strange. For billions of years, humanity's telescopes saw no such visitors. Then suddenly, in the space of just a handful of years, we detected Oumuamua, then Borisov, and now 3I Atlas. 3 scouts, 3 wanderers, back to back. Why now? It's a question that lingers, whispering in the background of every astronomical paper and late-night discussion. Is it simply that our technology has finally caught up? That modern surveys like Atlas are scanning the skies with a sharpness and frequency our ancestors never had, revealing what has always been there? Or is there something deeper at play? Something about this moment in cosmic history that draws these visitors near? The nature of 3I Atlas itself only deepens the unease. Unlike Borisov, which behaved very much like a normal comet, 3I Atlas seemed unstable. Its light curve suggested multiple pieces, fragments drifting together as though once part of a larger whole. Some researchers speculated it might have been torn apart during a close pass with another star, or that tidal forces had fractured it long ago. And yet, despite its apparent fragility, it remained coherent enough to journey across unimaginable distances. A broken traveler, but a persistent one. Its composition was equally perplexing. Spectroscopic studies hinted at unusual reflectivity. Its surface properties didn't match the comets we were used to. There was gas, there was dust, but not in the expected ratios. Instead, it seemed like a hybrid, neither fully comet nor fully asteroid, but something in between. A type of object we hadn't catalogued before. And then, of course, came the question of its speed. Like Oumuamua, 3I Atlas moved faster than anything native to the solar system. Interstellar space does not permit gentle drifting. An object cast free tends to carry enormous momentum. 3I Atlas raced through our system, following a trajectory that would take it past the sun only once, before vanishing forever into the void. For all the effort of discovery, our window of study was painfully short. As data trickled in, debates reignited. Was this another natural relic, or something more? Some astronomers leaned toward a natural explanation. Perhaps 3I Atlas was a piece of an icy dwarf planet shattered by gravity, flung outward from a distant solar system. Others pointed out its unusual stability despite fragmentation, asking whether we were seeing something designed, a structure, not just a rock. The most curious part, perhaps, was the timing. For billions of years, the skies remained silent, and then, suddenly, 3 interstellar objects revealed themselves in such quick succession. To many, it felt like a cosmic coincidence. To others, it was a message, a pattern waiting to be understood. If Oumuamua was the messenger, then what was 3I Atlas? A scout, a fragment, or perhaps a reminder that the galaxy is alive with travelers, and that Earth's brief era of watching the skies is only just beginning. As 3I Atlas continued on its lonely path, astronomers followed it for as long as possible. Telescopes tracked its fading light, logging data, building models, but like Oumuamua before it, this visitor offered only partial answers, and then, inevitably, it slipped into the darkness, leaving behind whispers, theories, and the quiet realization that the universe may be far more crowded and far more mysterious than we ever dared believe. Why now? Why do we see them now, when we never did before? Perhaps it is only chance, perhaps it is technology, or perhaps it is something more deliberate. For the moment, all we can do is watch the skies and wonder. When we place Oumuamua and 3I Atlas side by side, something becomes clear. Both are unique, and both are unsettling. They are alike in their strangeness, yet different in their mysteries. The more we study them, the more they seem to resist being placed neatly into any category. Oumuamua was elongated, silent, and eerily precise, gliding through the solar system without dust, without a comet's bright tail, yet accelerating as if something unseen were pushing it. A body that looked less like natural debris and more like something engineered. 3I Atlas, in contrast, was fragmented, unstable, and chaotic. Its light shifted strangely, glowing oddly, with signs of breaking apart and scattering, yet somehow clinging together in defiance of total disintegration. Unlike Oumuamua's mysterious silence, 3I Atlas revealed too much, yet still refused to behave like a comet. One seemed too perfect, the other too broken, but both were equally unexplainable. The contrasts let's linger on their differences. Oumuamua was sleek. Observations suggested it could be 10 times longer than it was wide, either like a cigar or perhaps like a thin, flat shard. It spun end over end, its brightness flickering rhythmically as it tumbled. No matter how closely astronomers watched, it gave off no trail of vapor. Yet, in its flight, it accelerated slightly away from the sun, as if pushed by a faint but consistent force. This lack of visible exhaust or debris baffled scientists. 3I Atlas, on the other hand, was messy. Its brightness fluctuated irregularly. Not smoothly like Oumuamua's, it seemed to be breaking apart, multiple pieces scattering, but somehow keeping a loose coherence. Astronomers thought of it as a fragile survivor, a cosmic shard that bore scars of a violent past. Where Oumuamua was quiet, Atlas was noisy. Where Oumuamua was a riddle wrapped in silence, Atlas was a riddle wrapped in chaos. In one, the puzzle was what we didn't see. In the other, the puzzle was what we saw but couldn't explain. The parallels, despite these differences, parallels bind them. Both traveled on hyperbolic paths, proof they came from interstellar space. Both appeared suddenly, too faint to detect, until they were already here. Both left quickly, giving astronomers only a short window to study them. And both, perhaps most importantly, refused to behave in ways that fit neatly within the categories of asteroid or comet. If one was strange, it could be dismissed as an anomaly, but two, so close in time, that hints at something more, not coincidence, but a pattern. The scientific papers. After Oumuamua's discovery, scientists published dozens of papers in rapid succession. Some claimed it was a fragment of frozen hydrogen, evaporating invisibly to produce the acceleration. Others argued it could be a shard of nitrogen ice from a Pluto-like world. Each hypothesis carried weaknesses. Hydrogen would not have survived interstellar travel, and nitrogen fragments would require implausibly large numbers of shattered exoplutos. And then there was the controversial suggestion from Harvard astronomer Dr. Avi Loeb that Oumuamua might not be natural at all, but a light sail, a thin artificial object designed to ride on starlight. Most scientists resisted this interpretation, preferring natural explanations. Yet none of those explanations fit perfectly either. With 3IATLAS, papers repeated the cycle of confusion. Some modeled it as a comet that had fractured under stress. Others proposed it was a fragment of a larger interstellar body, torn apart by tidal forces long ago. Its unusual reflectivity and fragmentation patterns didn't fit comfortably with known comet physics. Again, no theory was complete. Again, the story ended with more questions than answers. What the papers reveal is not certainty, but unease. The scientific community, so used to categorizing objects into tidy boxes, now faced objects that broke those boxes entirely. Imagination and what if questions. And here is where imagination begins to creep in, because when science cannot settle on an answer, speculation thrives. What if Oumuamua and 3IATLAS are not accidents of physics, but pieces of a larger whole? What if Oumuamua was the intact probe, the scout, the engineered messenger, and 3I was its broken twin, a damaged fragment of the same civilization's technology, limping across the galaxy in pieces? Or perhaps they are not technological, but evolutionary, different forms of the same phenomenon, one smooth, one shattered, one silent, one chaotic. What if we are glimpsing two stages of an interstellar life cycle we don't yet understand? Another possibility, what if they are breadcrumbs, markers scattered deliberately across star systems, to be noticed by any civilization advanced enough to track them? Oumuamua as the silent test, 3IATLAS as the noisy reminder, each a clue in a trail that leads somewhere larger. And what if they're not accidents at all, but warnings? Patterns across the stars. Patterns matter. To dismiss one anomaly is easy. To dismiss two, harder. And if more appear, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, the pattern becomes undeniable. At that point, we won't be talking about coincidences. We'll be talking about a phenomenon. If Oumuamua and 3I represent the beginning of a sequence, then the universe is trying to tell us something. Perhaps it has been trying to tell us for billions of years, but only now do we finally have the eyes, the telescopes, and the awareness to notice. It raises a haunting possibility. Maybe the universe is full of these objects. Maybe interstellar space is alive with scouts, fragments, messengers, signals, and maybe Earth's short era of watching the skies is finally catching up to a story that has been unfolding for eons. The breadcrumbs. The most unsettling thought is that these aren't random at all. That both Oumuamua and 3IATLAS are part of a deliberate trail, like breadcrumbs across the galaxy. Silent clues drifting on ancient paths, meant to be noticed. But breadcrumbs lead somewhere, and if these are signs, they beg a final question. Signs of what? Are they relics of civilizations long dead, leaving behind only drifting fragments of their technology? Are they active probes, quietly reporting back to origins we cannot trace? Or are they monuments, cosmic cairns left to remind us that we are not alone, and never have been? Oumuamua and 3I do not answer these questions. They only sharpen them. Two messengers, two puzzles, back to back across just a few years. In the silence of space, patterns emerge, and patterns are rarely meaningless. NASA has a long tradition of celebrating its discoveries. When a new planet is found, when a spacecraft beams back images of a distant world, or when a telescope spots a cosmic wonder, the news is shared with fanfare. Press releases, interviews, headlines splashed across the world's media. The tone is one of triumph and excitement, as though humanity is collectively invited to take part in the discovery. But with Oumuamua, and later with 3IATLAS, something was different. The reports were technical, subdued, almost clinical. There was little drama, little celebration, no bold speculation, no sweeping narratives about cosmic firsts. Instead, the language was careful, restrained, almost cautious to the point of discomfort. It was as though something was being left unsaid. Why? NASA's tone. When Oumuamua was first identified, NASA's official statements highlighted the object's interstellar nature. This was, after all, the very first confirmed interstellar visitor. That alone should have been cause for excitement, perhaps one of the most important astronomical events in modern history. And yet, the tone was muted. There were no grand claims about its meaning, no poetic language about its journey from the stars, just sterile reports, heavy with technical terms. The same happened with 3I-ATLAs. Its discovery was remarkable, the third interstellar object ever detected. But NASA's announcements were once again quiet, where you might expect comparisons, bold statements, or deeper reflections on what this meant for our understanding of the galaxy. The words were measured, careful, almost dismissive. The absence was striking. It wasn't what NASA said, but what NASA didn't say that stood out. Possible explanations. There are several possible reasons for this silence. The first is caution. Science, at its heart, is careful. To leap too quickly into speculation is to risk credibility. NASA may have deliberately avoided sensational claims to protect its reputation. After all, calling Oumuamua an alien probe without proof could undermine decades of scientific authority. The second is uncertainty. Perhaps NASA knows less than we think. Oumuamua and 3I Atlas defied explanation, and the truth is that astronomers simply didn't understand them. And when faced with the unknown, silence can sometimes feel safer than admitting ignorance. To say, "We don't know what this is," might be honest, but it's also unsettling. Far more unsettling than a quiet, technical report. The third explanation is more provocative. Perhaps NASA knows more, but is choosing not to share. Governments and scientific agencies often balance transparency against public reaction. If an anomaly is too strange, too destabilizing, perhaps it is quietly downplayed, not denied, not hidden outright, but muted, filed away under inconclusive. The politics of discovery. It's important to remember that NASA is not just a scientific institution, it is also a government agency. And government agencies operate within political realities. Every word they release is filtered through layers of oversight, funding concerns, and public relations strategy. Big discoveries often mean big funding. Celebrating exoplanets, new telescopes, or Mars rovers brings excitement, and excitement translates to political support. But anomalies are different. They carry risk, they invite uncomfortable questions, they stir debates that could easily veer into speculation, even conspiracy. If NASA openly admitted that Oumuamua or 3I Atlas might be artificial, or that they had properties no natural explanation could fully cover, what then? Would the public panic? Would lawmakers demand answers NASA couldn't provide? Would scientists be forced into the spotlight with nothing but theories? Sometimes, downplaying the unknown is safer than fueling it. Lessons from the past. This pattern isn't new. History shows us that governments and institutions often underplay anomalies. When strange signals are detected by radio telescopes, they are usually dismissed quickly as interference, even when unexplained. When spacecraft record odd data, the official explanations lean toward malfunction rather than mystery. The reasoning is simple. The public craves certainty, but science thrives on doubt. And doubt doesn't play well in headlines. It unsettles, it destabilizes. So the official word is often calm, muted, even dismissive. Not because the anomaly isn't real, but because acknowledging its full weight would raise too many questions. Silence as a strategy. Silence, in this context, becomes a kind of strategy. By offering technical reports, NASA fulfills its obligation to inform. By avoiding speculation, it avoids controversy. And by saying less, it leaves the door open for plausible deniability. But silence carries its own message. When faced with anomalies as strange as Oumuamua and 3I Atlas, the lack of excitement feels unnatural. It feels deliberate, as though we are being shielded from something. Or perhaps, as though NASA itself is unsettled, unwilling to admit the scale of what we've stumbled upon. Because here is the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words. The dangerous kind of ignorance. Another possibility is even more haunting. Perhaps NASA's silence does not come from secrecy, but from ignorance. Perhaps they truly don't know what these objects are. Imagine the weight of that, an agency built on exploration, with some of the most powerful instruments ever created, confronted with visitors from beyond the stars, and left without answers. To admit that would be to admit a kind of helplessness, and perhaps that helplessness is more dangerous than the truth itself. If these objects are random debris, then they are harmless curiosities. But if they are not, if they represent something larger, something intentional, then NASA's uncertainty is not just unsettling, it is frightening. Between the lines in the end, what we are left with is not what NASA said, but what NASA didn't. The subdued tone, the lack of excitement, the refusal to speculate. Between the lines, silence takes on a shape of its own. Maybe NASA knows less, maybe it knows more, but in either case, the choice to remain quiet is telling. It reflects either a protective caution or a quiet fear. And so, the reports remain clinical, technical, stripped of drama, while beneath the surface, the implications are anything but. The unanswered question, what do these silences mean? Are they the careful restraint of an institution committed to evidence, or are they the calculated omissions of an agency balancing truth against stability? We cannot know for certain. What we do know is that with Oumuamua and 3I Atlas, the silence is unusual. It feels heavier than the words themselves. And perhaps that is the point, because sometimes silence is not absence, it is presence. A presence that says, something is here, but not yet ready to be spoken aloud. When we take a closer look at the record of Oumuamua and 3I Atlas, the anomalies multiplied. At first glance, they appear to be strange, wandering pieces of debris. But as astronomers studied them more carefully, unsettling details began to emerge. Hints of behaviors that nature alone struggles to explain. Oumuamua accelerated slightly as it passed through our solar system. No rocket engines, no obvious plume of gas, no icy tail trailing behind it. Just a tiny but measurable push, as though something invisible were guiding it onward. 3-1, Atlas, meanwhile, seemed fragile, almost unstable. A comet-like body, but breaking apart in unusual ways. Fragments glowing oddly, drifting, yet somehow maintaining coherence, as if it refused to fully disintegrate, no matter how close it came to destruction. And then there are the whispers, the quieter anomalies, patterns in the data that don't fit, signals that may only be noise, or may be something more. The strange push of Oumuamua. Astronomers are trained to measure motion with precision. Every rock, every comet, every planet follows predictable paths governed by gravity. But Oumuamua didn't behave like it should have. Its acceleration was small but real, enough to defy explanation, yet subtle enough to avoid certainty. Was it outgassing, the invisible evaporation of ice? Perhaps, but there were no visible signs, no jets of vapor, no tail, nothing that matched the behavior of comets we know. Instead, Oumuamua moved as if something else was at work, a pressure not easily explained. Could sunlight itself, pushing against a thin, reflective surface, have provided the acceleration? If so, Oumuamua wasn't a rock at all. It might have been a wafer-thin sheet, like a sail, not natural, but engineered. The fragility of 3I Atlas when 3I Atla appeared. Its behavior was different, but equally strange. Early on, it resembled a comet, but as it approached the inner solar system, it began to fragment, not randomly, but in a way that puzzled astronomers. Pieces broke away, yet the fragments seemed to glow with a strange coherence, as if bound by more than gravity. It refused to fade quietly, instead displaying unpredictable flares, bursts of brightness, as though it were signaling rather than decaying. Some argued this was ordinary cometary behavior, exaggerated by the stresses of heat and radiation. Others weren't so sure. The timing, the energy, the way the pieces seemed to hold together, it all felt unusual, almost deliberate. The question of signals beyond motion and fragmentation. There is another layer of mystery. Signals. For decades, astronomers have listened for whispers from the stars. Giant radio telescopes scanned the skies, searching for patterns in the static, hoping for a signal that is artificial rather than natural. Most of what they hear is noise, the crackle of the universe itself. But once in a while, an anomaly emerges. With Oumuamua and 3I Atlas, the question naturally arose, should we listen? If these objects are visitors, should we point our ears toward them? SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, did exactly that. Observatories like the Green Bank Telescope turned toward Oumuamua, scanning across multiple radio bands. They listened for beacons, for pulses, for anything structured. The official word. Nothing was detected. No clear signals, no alien transmissions, just silence. But silence is not the same as nothing. What if the signals were there, but in forms we didn't know how to recognize? What if the message wasn't in radio at all, but in light, or in particles, or in some language beyond our science? Are we listening the wrong way? This question lingers. What if they aren't silent? What if we just aren't listening the right way? Our technology is designed to detect what we know. Radio waves, infrared light, narrow bands of energy that make sense to us. But a civilization millions of years older, if one exists, might communicate in ways beyond our imagination. Neutrinos, quantum entanglement, gravitational ripples, things we barely understand or don't even suspect. To us, their signals would look like noise, random patterns, static, a puzzle we cannot solve because we don't yet know it is a puzzle. Could Oumuamua's strange acceleration itself have been a kind of message? Could 3 IATLAS's glowing fragments have been a display, a broadcast written not in sound, but in behavior? The SETI connection, the SETI community, wrestled with these possibilities. For some, Oumuamua was a once-in-a-lifetime chance, the first real test case of an interstellar visitor. They argued for more resources, more scans, more attention. Others warned against overreaching. To see intention in every anomaly is to risk falling into fantasy. But the truth is, SETI thrives on long odds. Every star scanned, every radio band swept, carries a chance, however small, of contact. And in Oumuamua and 3 IATLAS, the odds felt just a little higher. These weren't distant suns, they were here, passing us by. If ever there was a time to listen, this was it. Signals in the noise. The public never heard much about the scans. The results were quiet, understated. Officially, no signals. But some astronomers have whispered that there were anomalies, tiny fluctuations, patterns too weak to claim, too ambiguous to publish, but persistent enough to linger in the data. Were they simply artifacts of the instruments, or something else? Science demands restraint. To announce discovery without proof is dangerous, and so the anomalies remain buried, locked in technical reports, dismissed as likely noise. Yet the possibility lingers. Noise, after all, is only noise until it isn't. The first radio detection of a pulsar was once called LGM, short for Little Green Men. Only later did astronomers realize it was natural. But what if, one day, the reverse happens? What if something dismissed as noise turns out not to be? More than rock and dust, Oumuamua and 3I Atlas came and went. They carried no obvious signals, no messages we could decipher. But the strangeness of their behavior leaves the question open. What if they came carrying more than rock and dust? What if the message was their presence itself? The arrival of visitors from beyond, within the span of a few short years, after billions of years of emptiness. Perhaps the signal is not in radio waves or flashing lights, but in the simple fact that they are here at all. That the universe, silent for so long, suddenly seems to be knocking at our door. The quiet implication anomalies are easy to dismiss. A push here, a fragment there, a faint noise in the static. Each one small, explainable, but taken together, they paint a picture that feels larger. Oumuamua accelerated. 3-1ATLAS broke apart strangely. Signals were scanned, but silence prevailed. And yet, the unease remains. Because silence is not certainty. An absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. The question lingers, quiet but insistent. What if we are not listening the right way? The question cannot be avoided. When Oumuamua first streaked through the solar system, and when 3I Atlas followed, astronomers were forced into a corner. These weren't ordinary comets. They weren't ordinary asteroids. They didn't fit neatly into the categories we used for centuries to map the heavens. So we are left with two possibilities. If they are natural, then they carry within them the history of the galaxy itself. Fragments of worlds long gone, messengers of creation and destruction. They would teach us about the forces that shape solar systems, the collisions that scatter planets, the way time and gravity sculpt matter across light years. But if they are not natural, then we are staring at something far more profound. The first hints, the first physical evidence, that we are not alone, that other civilizations have left their marks behind, that the galaxy, for all its silence, has spoken to us in stone, in motion, in mystery. Let's walk through both doors, slowly, calmly, balanced. The natural explanation, the cautious voice of science urges us to begin with the natural. Oumuamua, elongated and tumbling, could be nothing more than a shard of rock. Perhaps it was once part of a planet or moon, shattered by cosmic violence. When worlds collide, and they do, fragments can be flung outward at tremendous speeds. Some fall back into orbit, some burn in their stars, and some are cast adrift, exiled into interstellar space. Over millions, even billions of years, such fragments wander. They drift through the galaxy like flotsam on a vast, dark ocean. Occasionally, one passes through another star system, just as a piece of driftwood might wash up on a distant shore. To encounter them is rare, but given the scale of time, not impossible. 3-1 Atlas could be another piece of such cosmic debris, a comet that once circled a foreign sun, its icy surface scarred by heat, its body fractured by gravity, torn apart, but not destroyed. A broken traveler, glowing faintly as it shed pieces of itself under the stress of our own sun's warmth. These explanations are humble. They require no alien builders, no deliberate messengers. They rest only on the natural laws of physics, chaos, and chance. If true, then each object is a gift, a sample of another solar system delivered to us across unfathomable distances. To study them is to study other stars indirectly. To look at them is to glimpse the galaxy's history written in stone and ice. The unnatural explanation, and yet, there is that other possibility, the one we hesitate to voice, but cannot escape. What if Oumuamua was not merely a shard? What if its strange acceleration was not the random push of invisible gases, but the controlled pressure of design? Its elongated shape, its smoothness, its silence. Might it have been a sail, thin as foil, driven by starlight? What if 3-I Atlas, in its glowing fragments, was not simply breaking apart, but revealing structure? What if its persistence, its odd behavior, was not a cometary accident, but the trace of something made? Harvard astronomer Avi Loeb famously argued that Oumuamua could be artificial, a probe, a relic of alien engineering, passing near us by chance or by choice. His claim sparked controversy, even ridicule, but it refused to fade. The possibility was too profound to ignore. If these objects are artificial, then they may be probes, scouts, breadcrumbs left behind by civilizations we have never met. They may be old, ancient beyond comprehension, drifting relics of a species that no longer exists. Or they may be active, watching, listening. Perhaps they were never meant for us at all, but for someone else, somewhere else, long ago. And we are only incidental witnesses. Latecomers to a message we were never intended to see, balancing the scales so, which is more likely? Most scientists lean toward the natural. Nature is abundant, chaotic, and efficient. Billions of stars, billions of planets, countless collisions. Interstellar debris should exist, and it stands to reason that every once in a while, a piece will pass by Earth. The strange behavior of Oumuamua, they argue, can be explained by unfamiliar physics. Perhaps it was a porous, icy fragment, shedding gases invisibly. Perhaps 3-I Atlas was nothing more than a comet too fragile to survive its journey. But the allure of the unnatural remains. For the first time in history, we observed visitors from another star. They arrived almost back to back, after eons of silence. Both behaved strangely, both left us unsettled. If even one of them were artificial, then it changes everything. The galaxy is no longer indifferent, no longer silent. We would know that we share this universe with minds beyond our own. The hope and the fear, which one do you hope is true? For some, the natural explanation is comforting. It keeps the universe vast, impersonal, knowable. Rocks are rocks, comets are comets, and we can chart them, measure them, understand them. To call them natural is to keep our place in the cosmos familiar. For others, the artificial explanation stirs hope. It suggests we are not alone, that intelligence blooms elsewhere, that civilizations rise, endure, explore. It means that the silence of the stars is not emptiness, but distance. That out there, somewhere, others exist, and yet, there is also fear. If Oumuamua or 3-I Atlas are probes, then someone, or something built them. To what purpose? To explore, to observe, to warn. If they are scouts, are they followed? If they are breadcrumbs, who left the trail? Hope and fear twined together in the imagination. The possibility of kinship, and the possibility of threat. The joy of not being alone, and the dread of not being prepared. The unanswered question, so we remain suspended between two possibilities. Natural, shards of ancient worlds, drifting for eons, teaching us about the galaxy's violent history. Unnatural, relics of intelligence, the first signs that we are part of a greater community of life. Both explanations are extraordinary. Both change how we see ourselves. The truth, for now, remains hidden. Oumuamua is gone, beyond the reach of our telescopes. 3.1 Atlas. 2. Has slipped away into darkness. We had only brief glimpses, fleeting encounters, and we are left with more questions than answers. Perhaps, in time, another visitor will come, another chance to study, to listen, to know. Until then, the mystery lingers. Alien probe, or natural object, the universe has not yet told us. When Oumuamua appeared in 2017, and when 3i Atlas followed, the first instinct was curiosity. What are these things? Where did they come from? Are they natural wanderers or something more? But there is another possibility, one more haunting than the idea of probes, more sobering than fragments of ancient planets. What if they are not here to greet us at all? What if they are warnings, the ghosts of destroyed worlds? Imagine for a moment that Oumuamua was indeed a shard, but not just any shard. Imagine it was the remnant of a world that once thrived, a planet with oceans, continents, perhaps even civilizations. A world that met its end in cataclysm, torn apart by its own star, shattered by collision, or consumed by some catastrophe we can scarcely imagine. The fragment drifts for eons, silent, indifferent, until at last it crosses paths with us. To us, it is only a strange rock, tumbling end over end, but perhaps its presence is itself a message, a reminder that worlds can die, that civilizations are fragile, that what happened to them could, one day, happen to us. Every piece of interstellar debris could be a ghost story, a warning carried across light years, not written in words, but in silence. Scouts in the dark. And then there is the other idea, that these objects are not simply relics, but scouts, not greetings, but watchmen. What does a scout do? It surveys, it maps, it observes, quietly, carefully, without announcing itself. Oumuamua passed through our system silently, changing direction ever so slightly, as if guided. 3.1 ATLA has broke apart in strange ways, glowing oddly, resisting simple explanation. To some, these are only anomalies. To others, they feel purposeful. What if such objects are meant to pass through, to take note, to listen, and then to leave? What if they are part of a pattern, a network of sentinels scattered across the stars? It is speculation, yes, but speculation has always been the spark of discovery. Every breakthrough, from fire to flight, began with a question that seemed absurd until it was not. The universe as a message board. If you were a civilization reaching across the stars, how would you leave a message? Radio signals fade, lasers scatter, even physical probes decay in time. But rocks, fragments, engineered sails, they can last millions of years, drifting silently, carrying their presence into the future. What if the galaxy itself is filled with such messages? Objects not designed to land or transmit, but simply to be noticed, to drift into the paths of young civilizations at just the right time and awaken their curiosity. Breadcrumbs scattered across the cosmic forest, not to show us where to go, but to remind us that others have passed this way before. Oumuamua and 3i Atlas could be to such breadcrumbs. Whether deliberate or accidental, they arrived close together in human history, a sequence too striking to ignore. A warning written in silence. Warnings do not need to be shouted. Sometimes the most effective warning is a quiet one. A rock passing by, behaving just oddly enough to stir questions. A fragment glowing strangely, refusing to fit our categories. The silence from NASA and other agencies, as if even they sense something deeper, something they cannot yet explain. Perhaps the warning is not, "We are coming." Perhaps it is, "This is what can happen." Civilizations may rise and fall. Stars may flare and consume their children. Worlds may be destroyed by forces within or without. And here we are, on our small blue planet, building rockets, sending signals, and beginning to step into the wider cosmos. Maybe the universe is whispering, "Be careful. Do not assume you are safe. Do not assume you are alone." The speculative spark. Speculation has always been humanity's way of preparing for the unknown. Long before telescopes, we told stories of visitors from the sky. Long before radios, we dreamed of signals in the dark. Oumuamua and 3i Atlas reignited that ancient spark. They are not just scientific curiosities, they are canvases for imagination. Some see them as natural debris, some as probes, and some as warnings. Each interpretation reveals something about us, our hopes, our fears, our sense of wonder. Science may one day prove that these objects were ordinary, but in the meantime, the questions they raise prepare us for extraordinary possibilities. Civilizations across the ages consider this. A civilization older than ours by millions of years would think on scales we cannot imagine. To them, scattering probes across the galaxy might be trivial. Leaving fragments behind, either deliberately or by accident, might be inevitable. They may know that civilizations rise and that many do not endure. They may know that destruction, whether self-inflicted or cosmic, is the rule rather than the exception. And so they might leave behind artifacts, not to communicate in words, but to remind, to serve as gravestones, or warnings, or we, stumbling across them in our youth, would naturally ask, are these threats, or lessons? Are they meant for us, or for anyone who comes after? Preparing for the next visitor, whether warning or accident, probe or rock, Oumuamua and 3i Atlas have changed us. We now know that interstellar visitors are not just theoretical, they are real, and they come to us unannounced. The question is not if another will appear, but when. And when it does, we will be ready with better telescopes, sharper instruments, and deeper questions. Perhaps we will find only another shard, another fragment of a destroyed world. Or perhaps, at last, something unmistakable, a design, a signal, a warning made clear. Until then, we live with the mystery, and with the possibility that the universe has already spoken to us, not in words, but in presence. The whisper in the dark, it may be nothing, just rocks, just debris, or it may be everything. The first signs that others have walked this path before us, leaving their silent markers drifting in the dark. If they are warnings, then they are not hostile. They do not attack. They do not interfere. They simply pass by, as if to say, look, learn, remember. And so we wonder, are we being warned? Are these cosmic travelers reminders of what can be lost, or what may yet come? The answer is still beyond our reach, but the question remains, whispering like a ghost across the stars. What if they are not visitors, but warnings? Our solar system has always been a place of wonder. We look at Oumuamua, a 3i Atlas, and we think, these are strange, because they come from beyond. Yet even before these interstellar wanderers arrived, the solar system around us had been whispering secrets, strange signals, silent questions, mysteries that do not yield their answers easily. Perhaps the truth is that we, need to search the distant stars for wonder. It is already here, orbiting quietly, waiting for us to notice. The moon, a silent bell in the dark. Our moon is, in many ways, familiar. We see it every night, lighting our skies. It feels almost ordinary, a companion so close that it seems completely known. But the closer we look, the stranger it becomes. When Apollo astronauts placed seismic instruments on the lunar surface and deliberately crashed spent rockets into the moon, they expected to record ordinary tremors. Instead, they discovered something baffling. The moon rang, like a bell struck by a hammer. It vibrated for far longer than scientists anticipated. The echoes carried on for hours, as though the entire body resonated in an unnatural way. Was it simply due to the moon's unusual structure? A dry, fractured body transmitting vibrations differently from Earth? Or was there something deeper, something that suggested the moon is not what we think it is? Speculations followed. Some whispered of the moon being hollow, perhaps even an ancient construct. Others thought of long-lost impacts reshaping its core in strange ways. Even now, decades later, we cannot say with certainty. And so the moon, the most familiar body in our skies, remains one of the greatest mysteries, always watching, always silent. Yet occasionally, when struck, ringing out like a bell in the dark. Mars, the ghost of rivers. Then there is Mars, a world that once seemed barren, dead, nothing but a rust-colored desert. But as our eyes grew sharper, as orbiters and rovers wandered across its surface, the truth became undeniable. Rivers once carved through its valleys, lakes once shimmered in its craters. There are dry riverbeds that look as if water ran through them only yesterday. The evidence is everywhere. Channels, deltas, mineral traces that can only form in water. Mars was once alive with liquid, and where there is water, there may be life. Perhaps that life has vanished, its traces buried beneath dust and time. Or perhaps it lingers still, hidden beneath the surface, in aquifers or frozen plains, tiny organisms, clinging on in the cold, waiting for discovery. If Mars once flourished, then we are not the first planet in our solar system to host oceans, rivers, perhaps even skies blue with clouds. We would not be the only cradle of possibility, and yet Mars stands before us as a caution. A world that lost its water, lost its warmth, and became a desert. A warning of how fragile a planet's balance can be. Europa, the ocean beneath ice farther out. In the kingdom of Jupiter, there is Europa, a small moon, pale and smooth, wrapped in ice. At first glance, it looks lifeless, but beneath that icy crust, scientists are almost certain, lies an ocean larger than all of Earth's seas combined. It is warmed not by sunlight, but by tidal forces. The pull of Jupiter-esque gravity stretching and squeezing the moon until its interior stays warm. There, in the dark, water may churn against hydrothermal vents, rich with the same chemistry that may have birthed life on Earth. Imagine a hidden sea, untouched for billions of years. Imagine creatures that have never seen a star, glowing softly in the blackness, drifting through alien currents. Europa reminds us that life may not need warmth from above. It may need only water, energy, and time. And if life can grow there, in silence and darkness, then the universe may be filled with it, waiting beneath ice, hidden from our eyes, thriving where we least expect it. Enceladus, the moon that speaks. And then there is Enceladus, Saturn's icy jewel. Like Europa, it hides an ocean beneath its frozen surface. But unlike Europa, it does not keep it hidden. From great fractures near its south pole, Enceladus sprays fountains of water into space. Jets of ice and vapor erupt like geysers, glittering against the black. The Cassini spacecraft flew through these plumes and found chemicals, salts, organic molecules, the ingredients of life. Enceladus does not just suggest the possibility of life, it throws that possibility into space, as if to declare it boldly, as if to say, look closer, we are more than we seem. It is hard not to feel that Enceladus is speaking to us, in its own way, not in language, but in action. A world revealing its secrets, hinting at what lies beneath. A reminder that the universe may not always hide its mysteries. Sometimes, it displays them openly, like a signal flare across the dark. Whispers of connection when we place these mysteries side by side. The moon ringing like a bell, Mars whispering of lost rivers, Europa hiding oceans, Enceladus casting plumes into space. A pattern begins to form. They are not the same as Oumuamua, or 3IATLAS, drifting from beyond the stars, but they speak the same language, wonder, curiosity, and warning. The moon reminds us that what seems ordinary may hold secrets. Mars reminds us that planets can die, even if they once lived. Europa reminds us that life may flourish in the dark. Enceladus reminds us that the cosmos sometimes wants us to notice. Together, they echo the same message as the interstellar visitors. You are not alone. Look closer. A solar system full of secrets. Perhaps the greatest lesson of these planetary mysteries is that the universe is richer than we imagine. We once thought the Earth unique, the Moon simple, Mars barren, the outer moons lifeless. Yet the more we look, the stranger and more alive it all becomes. Our own solar system may be filled with life, or at least with signs of what life could be. And if that is true here, then it may be true everywhere. The interstellar visitors may be rare, fleeting, their secrets difficult to unravel. But we need not wait for them to return. The clues are already here, written across the worlds that circle our own sun. The invitation everywhere we look. The universe seems to whisper an invitation. The moon whispers, strike me, and I will ring. Mars whispers, look at my rivers, and remember what I once was. Europa whispers, beneath my ice, oceans stir with possibility. Enceladus whispers, I send my secrets into space for you to find. And when we add Oumuamua and 3i Atlas to this chorus, the message grows stronger. You are not alone. You are part of a larger story. Look closer. Listen more deeply. Do not stop asking. The mysteries are not barriers. They are invitations, doorways into wonder, reminders that the universe is alive with possibility. And so, whether we gaze at a passing fragment from another star, or at a moon circling our own planets, the lesson is the same. The universe is not silent. It is speaking. The question is, are we listening? As our journey draws to a close, the question sharpens and becomes intimate. It stops being only a matter for telescopes and observatories, and slides quietly into the human frame. Are we alone? Or is someone, something, watching us from the dark between the stars? We have followed two strange visitors into our skies. Oumuamua, the lean, silent wanderer that slipped through like a shadow, and 3i Atlas, the fractured, flickering traveler that did not behave like any comet we had catalogued. Both arrived unannounced. Both left only traces. Both forced us to ask questions that reach past science and into the marrow of what it means to be human. There are simple, steady possibilities, and there are wild, daring ones. Both deserve a calm hearing. The smallness of our moment, consider the cosmic scale for a breath. Stars are born and die in times measured in millions and billions of years. Civilizations, if they arise, may bloom and fade on scales almost impossible to imagine. Our species, modern humans, have walked the earth for only a brief instant in that timeline. We are new eyes in an old universe. And yet, in this brief moment, we have built instruments sensitive enough to catch whispers from other stars. We have learned to translate faint flickers of light into stories about distant objects. We have, in other words, earned the right to be surprised. Oumuamua and 3i Atlas announce something essential. The galaxy does not belong only to us. It carries motion, history, chaos, and perhaps intention that predates our memory. The mere presence of interstellar visitors implies a cosmos where things, sometimes purposeful, sometimes accidental, travel between the stars. That fact alone shifts our place in the universe from solitary island to a point on a moving network. Observed or coincidence, to sit with the possibility that we are observed is uncomfortable and intoxicating in equal measure. Being watched suggests others are curious about us. It implies a long arc of attention that may have begun long before our species existed. But observation is not necessarily hostile. Much of science is observation, careful, quiet, patient. An astronomer studies a star for patterns. A biologist watches a nest to understand behavior. Observation can be care, not a threat. If Oumuamua were engineered, or if 3i Atlas carried intelligence of any kind, what would that imply? Perhaps that some intelligence wanted to look, to map, to learn without interfering. Perhaps ancient civilizations, or their machines, sent probes as scouts, intended only to pass by, to collect and depart. Perhaps they were designed as durable messengers, built to survive eons and drift until a curious species noticed them. But there is another, humbler explanation. The galaxy is a busy, violent place. Collisions happen. Gravities tug, fragments free. Comets and planetesimals are launched into interstellar space by the slings and hands of giants. On that account, Oumuamua and 3i Atlas are not observers but evidence of ordinary cosmic processes, relics of creation and destruction that have finally crossed our sky. Which interpretation feels truer depends on how you square what you feel with what you measure. Science leans toward the conservative, the testable. Wonder leans toward the possible, the soul-stirring. Both are necessary, both keep us honest. The climax, a single, shocking what if now, breathe in the boldest possibility, slowly, like stepping to the edge of a darkened cliff and seeing lights far below. What if these messengers were not accidents at all, not castaways of cosmic violence, but deliberate? What if somebody, somewhere, placed them on trajectories calculated to intersect systems that might one day produce curious, tool-using beings? What if they were set to arrive now? Because now is the moment when a species on a small blue world has finally learned to look up and listen. This is the climax of the idea, the point where speculation turns into a story with stakes. We would not be the first to be noticed, only the first to recognize it. These messengers could be invitations, tests, catalog entries, or something else entirely. And yet, with that grandeur comes vulnerability. If they were placed, by whom and for what purpose? To warn, to welcome, to observe and move on. If they were intended as guides, we may be too young to follow. If they were warnings, we must learn to read them. If they were catalog entries, then a far older intelligence has already written us into its map. The quiet refrain, we may never know the answer. The universe can be tirelessly patient. It gives, but on its own timetable. Oumuamua is gone. 3i Atlas has faded. Our instruments can reach only so far and for so long. Some mysteries are like wind on a lake, a ripple crossing the surface that disappears before a full understanding can be drawn. Yet the mystery itself is a teacher. It instructs us in humility. It reminds us that our knowledge is partial, our models provisional, and our confidence often premature. It asks us to refine our instruments, to enlarge our curiosity, to listen with more patience and with more kinds of ears. It invites collaboration across cultures, fields, and generations. And there is a gentler lesson too. To be watched or not, the universe's vastness offers a kind of comfort. It places our lives within a larger story, one of motion, history, and possibility. The idea that we might be observed by something older and greater does not have to terrify. It can inspire us to grow into beings worthy of attention. A soft closing, small and wondrous. In the end, whether Oumuamua and Three-Eye Atlas are rocks, relics, or relics of intelligence, their passage changed us. They bent the arc of our questions just a little further outward. They introduced a note of urgency and a note of awe to our scientific music. We stand now as a species new to the cosmos, with instruments that catch faint traces and imaginations that stitch stories around them. We have to choose how we respond, with fear, curiosity, caution, or courage, perhaps all at once, in different measures. And so we close this chapter, not with an answer, but with an invitation to look up, to listen, and to meet the unimaginable with steady minds and gentle hearts. For even if we are only being watched from afar, the watching binds us to something larger. It tells us we matter in a cosmos that, in its silence and its storms, is nonetheless capable of producing curiosity, craft, and perhaps, one day, conversation. The stars keep moving, the messengers keep wandering. We remain here, small, fragile, wonderfully awake, and for the first time in our history, ready to wonder what it all might mean. And so, we return to silence. The stars above us, unchanged, eternal. Oumuamua drifts onward. 3-1, ATLAs fades into memory, and we are left with questions. Perhaps, as you close your eyes tonight, you will wonder, were these objects simply cosmic wanderers, or were they signs, left by hands we cannot yet comprehend? In the end, the universe keeps its secrets, and sometimes the mystery itself is the most beautiful answer. Sleep now, beneath the stars. The cosmos will keep watch.